last Jedi!
Who are you?
I'm Rey. Rey Skywalker.
Welcome to the Chiss Ascendancy podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Chiss Ascendancy podcast. This is Josiah, and I have a special guest on. I think this is your second time on the show.
I think so, yeah, second.
I know I had you on once for a Book of Boba. I don't think it was a review. I think it was it a review? Or was it one of the 30 Days of Boba?
Episode 1, I think it was a review of.
Yeah. Man, that feels like so long ago.
Right.
But I've got my buddy Finn Clay on, also known as Findor Moon on Instagram. If you are a Star Wars fan, you have to follow this guy. And today, we've got a very special episode for you guys. This is episode 80 of the Chiss Ascendancy podcast. And today we are saying all hail to the Queen, Miss Rey Skywalker herself. Today's episode is dedicated to Rey. But before we get into that, we've got some news. So some news that's been going on. As of this recording, we're recording April 12th. This might be out the 13th or so. But as of April 12th, yesterday, April 11th, was 5 years since the publishing of the Thrawn novel by Timothy Zahn that brought Thrawn back into the canon novelization fold. And so obviously we know Thrawn's Heir to the Empire trilogy is iconic. It's definitely one of the reasons Star Wars is still around today. It has a very special place in our heart here at the Chiss Ascendancy. But 5 years ago today, Thrawn, I think that Rebels had come out already and he was in that, but this was the first novel that he was back in by Timothy Zahn, who maybe people who have heard the podcast don't know this, but Thrawn was not a character that was pre-existing, and Zahn, made a book on this guy. He created the character, and so he's an original character by Mr. Timothy Zahn, and so we want to celebrate 5 years of Thrawn being back in the canon, the novels, timeline, all that kind of stuff. So we have a pretty cool quote here, Finn. Before we get into this quote from Zahn that he posted yesterday, I wanted to ask you, I know you are a Star Wars book connoisseur as well as an action figure collector. Have you read that Thrawn trilogy from the Imperial era?
Oh, gosh. I have read the first two. I have not read the last one.
So you've read Thrawn, the self-titled album, and then Treason. Or not Treason, but Alliances, and then you've got Treason to go.
Yeah. So I've got the first two, and then Treason. Yeah, Treason's the last one.
Beautiful.
So.
Alliances was a really fun one too because you get some of that back and forth flashbacks.
Oh yeah.
And it's cool because there's the There's the current timeline, and it's in the Imperial era with Thrawn and Vader. And then some might consider this a spoiler, but it's common knowledge. The other timeline is when Thrawn first meets Darth Vader, aka Anakin Skywalker, during the Clone Wars.
Oh yeah,
and so that's really cool. As a book collector, like a novel collector, one that's always gotten away from me is the San Diego Comic-Con cover of that. Yeah, because the legitimate cover that comes out that's widespread is Thrawn and Vader, kind of posed up, next to each other, alliances, they're working together. But the Comic-Con alternate cover was the same pose, but you get a younger Mithran Uodo and Anakin Skywalker during the Clone Wars. So, dude, that's on my bucket list. It's a really cool look. So real quick, we'll get into we'll read this quote from Mr. Zahn, because this is actually something we've talked about. This is something that's been on the podcast, something that me and you have talked about on personal, messages, talking about Thrawn and the new canon Thrawn and what we think about him. So this is a pretty cool thing that obviously Timothy Zahn's heard and so he's speaking on. So it says, one of the biggest questions and concerns I've heard over the past few months is whether the Thrawn of the new book is the same, end quote, as the Thrawn from the original 1990s trilogy. The answer is yes, but in the sense that you and I are the same people we were 10 or 15 years ago. Most of us have changed, at least somewhat, over that time. We've become calmer, more confident, or wiser, or possibly less patient, brooding, or prone to take risks. The circumstances that swirl around and interweave our lives also change over time, influencing us even as we influence them. So yes, this is still Thrawn, but a period of his life where we haven't yet seen him. I hope you enjoyed reading this latest part of his saga as much as I enjoyed writing it. And so I think that's a really clever way of explaining the Thrawn that we knew from the 90s could even potentially exist, if that makes sense, like that style of character, that who he becomes could exist in the future of canon that's now going on. We haven't visited that far in the future as the Heir of the Empire trilogy with Thrawn. So it's really interesting. And it's been, a lot of people have been saying between the Mandoverse and Ahsoka and all these things, maybe we're pointing to Thrawn in the end. Yeah. And so it's really interesting to see that he's like, the story's not over yet for this younger Thrawn that we think is a little bit more, seems to be a little bit more loving and a little bit more like dupable,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we'll see. So that's really cool. Yeah. 5 years. 5 years wild. Since Thrawn was, I can't believe it's been that long.
What I'm so blown away by is that, it definitely seems like Disney Star Wars right now in the Mandoverse is slowly piecing together like the Disney version of the Heir to the Empire kind of storyline, where it parallels in a lot of areas, it borrows bits and pieces here and there, and it's kind of piecing together its own big thing with Thrawn seemingly at the center as the big villain that's to be revealed, which is so just wild to me that we're getting that, that it seems like that's what it's all building to. I have a feeling that the Ahsoka series is going to give us a lot of information and help us to understand kind of what this is going to look like.
I think so too. And I think that just when I'm at work and I can't focus because I'm thinking about Thrawn, as we all are apt to do, I always wonder, like, what has it been like for Thrawn spending so much time with Ezra? Does he, Ezra, as he gets, a lot of people remember Ezra from season 1 and they're like, oh my God, that's just this annoying brat, this dumb kid. But by the end of season 4, I mean, like, he's been in the world between worlds. He's seen Kanan die. He's seen all these crazy things. He's matured. He's led, one of the first rebellions against the Empire that succeeded when it comes to Lothal. Yeah. And so he's a mature young man. Like, he's seen a lot of life. He's seen way more life than we probably give him credit for. just because early Ezra is kind of an annoying kid. But it
Well,
makes
so
me
is
wonder,
Ahsoka.
like, right, exactly. Ahsoka was like this hated character when she first came out in the Clone Wars movie, and now she's everybody's favorite.
Right.
Speaking of which, I found a Black Series Ahsoka at Walgreens recently,
Oh yeah.
and they couldn't ring it up, I guess, because it wasn't a system. And they're like $9, and so that was a steal.
Dude.
But it makes me wonder, like, all this time Ezra spends with Thrawn. Thrawn is, I would say, the character of Thrawn in the new canon seems to have a lot more empathy for the people around him, a lot more care, and it makes me wonder if, and I've said this a million times on the podcast, but I wonder if Thrawn will end up somehow helping Ezra, as long as it doesn't, do something against the Chiss, like, who knows? But I'm excited. I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for what's going to happen. A crazy theory that I don't think will pan out, but it's fun to, theories are fun to imagine until we're proved wrong. But, Christopher Lloyd was cast for Mandalorian season 3.
Uh-huh.
And, one crazy theory that I heard was, what if that's Jeruus Sabaoth?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I heard
He's
that
the
theory, and I
crazy,
was like, I'm just imagining the Christopher Lloyd, doing the
Yeah.
the Air of the
the crazy hands.
He's got like the light pointing out of his fingers and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh
That's
my
what's so
gosh.
crazy. Because he's so dominant on that first cover, before I knew who Thrawn was, I was like, so this book's about this crazy old white guy? And Thrawn's just like this big on the front cover. You have no clue who he is. But yeah, I'm excited. I think that we have a lot of Thrawn ahead of us, which obviously for a podcast named the Chiss Ascendancy, that's exciting for us.
Oh yeah.
So
business.
next in news is Lego Star Wars. The Skywalker saga has been out for a little bit now. Been out for about a week. Have you played it? Do you intend to play it? Are you a gamer?
I am into Star Wars gaming, yes, and I want to play this very, very badly. I was really hoping that they were going to put it on Xbox Game Pass, so because I pay, like, it's a month, I do a monthly subscription for that to have
Right.
different games, and I was like, oh man, heck yeah, because they put new games on there and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was really hoping to have access to it, but they didn't put it on there, and so I was like, oh. No. So I have not played it yet, because now I'm trying to figure out, okay, math. How do I figure out how am I going to get this game in a timely manner so I can play?
Right.
Especially now that I know that Mr. Bones is a playable character.
Dude, yes. I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to put that in my notes and I totally forgot. One thing that's really cool for those of you who are gamers, love Star Wars, love Lego, and are also, Star Wars novel enthusiasts, Cobb Vanth, shout out to Vance Armory, one of our buddies on Instagram, Cobb Vanth and another character from the Aftermath trilogy. I don't think Cobb Vanth is in the Lego Star Wars game, but one character that was a really cool character that I don't imagine we're going to get a figure of him, but he's high on my list of random people I would love a figure of. But it's a battle droid. Imagine, for those of you who are not into Star Wars novels, if you've watched The Mandalorian, how IG-11 is reprogrammed to nurse and protect Grogu. This is a B-1 battle droid that's been completely reprogrammed by a young Snap Wexley, Timmond, I think his name is, before he's called Snap.
Yes.
And he reprograms him basically to be his best friend and his protector. And he's basically got like the Assassin's Creed like blade coming out of his wrist, and he's just a wild character. But he's one of the cool things about video games is, if we want if we want Hasbro to make a new series for the Vintage Collection, it's this big campaign. They've got to make molds. They've got all this other stuff. And the cool thing about video games is there's still a lot of work that goes into it, but I feel like you don't have to sell so many of a download. You know what I mean? Like, you can make some of these characters and you don't have to sell 50,000 of them to make your money back. And so there's tons of skins that you can go online and people are putting up like, hey, I just found this skin. And Mr. Bones is one of those. So if you're playing Lego Star Wars, the Skywalker saga, shut your mouth. This guy is a custom Mr. Bones. Well, I guess I'm going to be doing the math to figure out how I can hire you to make me a Mr. Bones then.
Oh yeah.
That's amazing. But
Yeah.
yeah, a crazy cool skin, very neat character, and Finn does amazing custom work for Star Wars figures in the 3 3/4 inch scale. So it doesn't surprise me in the slightest that you have that. So yeah, I can't wait. If you find your way to get it, it'd be cool to talk through it, because I've downloaded it, but working at the church during Easter season, it's like nonstop, nose to the grind. So I've played like an hour, maybe even less than that. But I really enjoyed it when I was playing it. So at the end of May is Star Wars Celebration. I know a lot of our friends are going to that. I don't currently have tickets. I am waiting to hear back about. I did apply for a media badge for the podcast, and I'm waiting to hear back if they approve that. So we'll see. I'm hoping to hear back soon, because I got to ask for vacation days if I get it approved.
Oh, man,
but
ask off work.
exactly. I emailed them and I was like, "Hey guys, yeah." I emailed them today. I was like, "Hey, I really need to know so I can ask my boss." But Celebration's coming up, and one of the coolest parts about Celebration is not just the fandom and the friends and the conversation, but there's tons and tons of Star Wars news that comes out. And so there's some rumors for things that are going to be at Celebration. And so one of those are trailers for Andor and the Bad Batch Season 2. What are your thoughts on that?
Dude, I would say that is a sure thing, because Star Wars Celebration always delivers. And if they're not putting out trailers for new stuff, I mean, what are they doing? I mean,
right. Especially with no like films coming.
Draw,
yeah, you know? I think so too.
And maybe they'll announce like another series. Like I know there's all kinds of stuff going on in animation and probably some future live action stuff that's being worked on. But yeah, I think that it's probably a definite that we'll get a trailer for Bad Batch and Andor, since they're coming out this year. I mean, Bad Batch Season 2 originally was rumored to be coming out in March, but they must have pushed it back. And I think that we'll get concrete release dates and a trailer for both of those.
Yeah, I wonder, and this kind of goes into the next little bit of news coming from Moff Gideon himself. Giancarlo Esposito said that he that we're basically going to be getting Mandalorian Season 3 in the summer.
Which is
wild. So that sounds crazy, right? Were you expecting the fall?
The last I had heard is, places like Star Wars Newsnet and things like that, Investment Bulletin, a lot of places were pointing toward it coming out like in November or December. Like it would be just about 2 years to the day when this would be coming out.
I agree. I thought it would be, if you asked me like when, 2022 first, came around the corner and we hadn't finished Book of Boba, I thought it would be Bad Batch in the spring, Obi-Wan at the end of May, which is what we're getting. Mm-hmm. And then Andor like late summer, and then Mandalorian in December. So it makes me wonder, do you think, I don't think that they would overlap live action shows. Do you think that they'll overlap the Bad Batch with Kenobi or Andor or Mando Season 3? Because it's slated to come out this year, but you know what I mean? Like maybe right after Kenobi?
I think that honestly, if all of this is being clustered around in the summer, they would just about have to. I mean, I think that it's entirely possible that the Bad Batch could start somewhere in the middle of Kenobi, and that it could bridge, if there's something like 16 to 18 episodes like the previous season had, it could easily bridge over, and then Andor would come out, and it would overlap. Or
interesting.
Come out and it would overlap. But who knows?
Yeah, it's interesting because Andor. Do we know? I know that Obi-Wan is supposed to be 10 years after Revenge of the Sith. Do we know like how many years after Revenge of the Sith, or how many years before Rogue One Andor is supposed to be set?
Andor is set 5 years prior to the events of Rogue
Rogue
One.
One.
So 5 years before A New Hope, which means that
So
that
5
puts
years
it,
after
that nexus
Kenobi,
it in a
basically.
really cool place to with like Rebels as well, because Rebels,
Right.
all of that happened 4 years prior to A New Hope. So, you know, depending on how long this Andor show runs, we could definitely see some overlap. And honestly, what's really cool is if you think about the fact that Ahsoka series is currently, you know, filming and all that. 1 year prior to the events of Rebels, Ahsoka would have still been like the head Fulcrum agent, and Cassian Andor
Right.
is a Fulcrum agent.
Yeah, he may be reporting to her.
Yeah, so we could very honestly see Ahsoka working with the larger rebellion in live action, and it would not be out of place, and it would not be forced. It would make sense in the storyline.
It makes
And it
me
would
wonder
work.
too, like, yeah, it also makes me wonder, you know, Obi-Wan has to have some contact with Bail Organa because Bail knows he's alive,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why he sends the message in A New Hope. So it's like, I don't want it to feel forced, but it would be really cool to see, you know, I don't know if it's like seeing Obi-Wan talk to Ahsoka or seeing Ahsoka talking to Bail Organa and there's like a hologram of Obi-Wan. I don't expect that they would be face to face because having Ahsoka and Obi-Wan in one place would cause there would be like, you know, their presences so close together. I think Vader would sense and it would be a big deal. But it does make me wonder, like, are they going to have almost like a middleman? Like, is there going to be some conversation that they're both a part of or something? It's just crazy. I never thought we would ever see, like we were saying, you have the Ahsoka from the Clone Wars movie that nobody liked. And then throughout the Clone Wars, she becomes everyone's favorite. And then she's in live action, but it's 5 years after Return of the Jedi. So Obi-Wan's dead, but it makes sense for her to be in Andor. And Andor is part of the Fulcrum web, which she's like Fulcrum 1.
Mm-hmm.
And they report to Mon Mothma or Bail Organa, who's talking to Obi-Wan. Like, this web that they're weaving, it like just barely is holding on, but it makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see what the overlap is.
Yeah, I think that we'll definitely have that kind of tension where we think, oh, are they about to, you know, cross paths? Like, you know, Bail is the person who employed Ahsoka and recruited her to the rebellion via the Ahsoka novel.
Right.
But then he's also got this secret side thing with Obi-Wan Kenobi where they're both like, by the way, we secretly have Anakin's kids, you know, and you know, Ahsoka is bound to know who Leia is. Does she realize or feel at any point in time that something's different about that kid? I don't know. Like, I feel a presence I haven't felt since, you know, like, or I don't think that they will ever actually have Ahsoka get concrete, you know, proof that Kenobi is alive. I don't think that they'll ever have her like, oh, hey, Bail, do you have
talk with him or anything?
I didn't realize you were on the phone, you know, like kind of a thing.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think there'll be a communication triangle, you know, like a love triangle, but not weird.
Yeah.
A communication triangle between people like Bail Organa, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka, and they just won't cross paths. Right. And that's got to be so heartbreaking for someone like Bail, who he's out there in a sea of corrupt politicians, and all he really wants is peace and to be with his friends again.
Yeah.
And the Empire's like, you know, he can make like a 30-second FaceTime call every couple of months to Ahsoka or Obi-Wan or some of his closest allies or friends.
Yeah.
But the people he's seeing on the daily are the people who are ruining his life. You know what I mean?
Right. And also think about how hard it has to be for him not to just be like, oh my gosh, okay, Ahsoka, you know that person that you love and care about so much and you think of as like an older brother, you like Obi-Wan? Okay, he's actually alive. Oh, yes.
Yeah, like what if Ahsoka's, you know, by the time we see her in Rebels especially, she seems so like still down to fight for what's right.
Yeah.
But also so dejected and like, I'm not a Jedi. Like she still is so torn and hurt from what's happened in the Clone Wars. It would be so hard to be in the know and be like, I can't tell her.
Yes.
It could literally like the small, tiny bit of hope that we have in these two kids could be snuffed out if she knows the truth. It's almost kind of like, you know, not to go to a dark place, but like if Ahsoka or Obi-Wan are struggling with like depression and like, dude, you know, that like being in that dark of a place, like you're having some really dark thoughts, and Bail's the one that has maybe the little glimmer of hope that could bring them back from that edge. But ultimately, as dark as this is going to sound, the singular life of someone like Ahsoka, although it's precious, does not outweigh the lives of billions that could be saved or changed or made better through the glimmer of hope of Luke and Leia. It's just, it's a very heavy mantle that Bail Organa is wearing. I don't think he gets enough love.
He has to live that impossible decision every single day. And
he has to go to work with the freaking rest of the crappy Senate.
Yeah. I think what will happen is we may get the satisfaction of Obi-Wan may find out from Bail that Ahsoka is alive. And maybe he asks Bail, how's Ahsoka doing? You know, things like that. But no one can let Ahsoka know about the survival and existence of Kenobi or Yoda. Even though in Rebels, Yoda reveals himself to Ahsoka in the Lothal Temple. I think she plays it super cool.
Yeah.
I think by that point, maybe she thinks that there might be some other surviving Jedi out there.
Yeah.
That she just
is but she's so distant. Yeah. But she's so distant. It's like, can she be part of that company that like, it makes me wonder, like, can Obi-Wan, I imagine Obi-Wan we know from a certain point of view and things like that, that he's able to communicate with Qui-Gon. Is he able to communicate from across the galaxy to Yoda through the Force? We don't really know, but it's kind of sad because as much as Ahsoka has distanced herself from the Force as a whole because she's so hurt by the things the Jedi have done, it makes it like the thing that she needs the most, which is relationships with those people around her to help her on. Yeah. She's not disqualified herself, but she's cut herself off from the Force in such a way that she's not cut off from the Force, but you know what I mean? Like, distanced herself from who she really is. You know what I mean? And it feels like the thing that, it's just, man, it's a really sad story when you really think about it. But speaking of Bad Batch, Rebels, Clone Wars, things like that, the composer for Clone Wars and for Bad Batch, a guy named Kevin, I don't know if it's Kiner or Kinner, it's Kiner. Kiner? Okay. Yeah. So he composes both of those shows, and he was in an interview recently, and this is our last little bit of news, but it's very exciting, and I have thoughts, and I want to hear your thoughts. But the quote, he's in an interview, right? And he says, you know, we are working on a new project. It's an animated project. It's a Star Wars project. And that's all we can say. It's really, really freaking great, to the point where Lucasfilm and Disney are giving us full orchestra for every episode. It's a very special project. Some great, great people are involved, and we're really privileged to be part of that one. And I probably have said too much already. What the heck is he talking about, bro?
Oh my gosh.
Do you have theories?
I do have a theory.
Let's hear it.
Do you remember some of the leaked photos that were coming out? Like, it was probably late last year, early this year, of like some staff gifts.
The Lucasfilm Christmas gift.
Christmas gift that had like all the titles of upcoming things, which is what kind of like low key confirmed that there's going to be another season of Visions that'll likely come out this year. But it also had a title, Tales of the Jedi, and everyone's like, "Why is this like random old title on here?" And then we went,
"Right,
oh,
why is it on here?
Why is it on here?"
Yeah.
Oh no.
because the gift, part of the cool thing that what's really cool is that Lucasfilm knocks it out of the park every year with these Christmas gifts. Like anything I've ever seen, I'm like, wow, that's a freaking sick gift.
Right.
It seems like you're part of a specific group that's working on specific shows, and the names of those shows are what's on the box. And I covered this in a video a while back when it first landed, but it looked like it was a vinyl record player. And this was what was on like the box that the record player came in. But Tales of the Jedi was on there.
Mm.
And what was so interesting was the rest of these are Disney Plus shows. You have, you had like an Indiana Jones thing. We were like, holy crap, I forgot Indiana Jones is coming out with something. And then you had shows like The Bad Batch, and underneath The Bad Batch, there's Tales of the Jedi. And Tales of the Jedi has probably, if you're into comics and you are like as much lore as I can know, you know how how I am. Like,
absolutely.
I'm like, when the Black Series Sergeant Creel was revealed, I was like, I need to brush up on this guy. I immediately go to Wikipedia and just copy and paste into my notes. Like, here's all the things Creel is in. I'm just going to read this. Because when I get a new, action figure, a new collectible or whatever, it's worth so much more to be like, this is who this character is. He's not just a cool looking character.
Oh yeah.
Having that depth there, And so that's why it was so cool when Chrysanthemum showed up in Book of Boba Fett, because we already knew who Chrysanthemum was, right?
Oh yeah.
And so when it comes to Tales of the Jedi, this is where you're getting like the Naga Sadow, Exar Kun, like all these crazy, like we're talking thousands and thousands of years ago, Jedi and Sith. It's like where the struggle, light versus dark, originates. It's like the first fallen dark Jedi and all these other things. And so what commands a more grandiose production than, these old stories that are some of the richest origins of the Jedi and the Sith and their conflict to conquer the Force or to be preservers of the Force. Oh, yeah. So I agree, dude. I think that they are throwing the kitchen sink at this show. And I think it's going to be, with Clone Wars and with Rebels, we warmed up to the grown-up version of the story.
Right.
With Clone Wars, you have a lot of silliness at first. And then by season 5, 6, 7, people are getting decapitated. People are like, it's wild, right?
That episode
and
where
then
Ahsoka
same thing
jumps up and cuts off like 6 Mandalorians' heads.
Yeah. Or like the one where from season 5, or maybe it's season 6, The Lawless, where Sidious comes and like massacres the Mandalorians and then murders Maul's brother. And then Maul begs for mercy and he says, there is no mercy. And just like freaking electrocutes him just to the brink of death.
Right.
And then the same thing in Rebels. You meet Ezra, and he's this annoying street urchin that's trying to, steal fruit because he's hungry. And he's an orphan, and exactly, he is Space Aladdin. And then you've got Chopper, and you've got, Zeb, who are arguing, and nothing's really that serious. And then by the end of it, you could argue, other than the Mortis arc, and maybe the episode where Yoda's talking to the voice of Qui-Gon, other than those like 3 or 4 things, the last 2.5 seasons of Rebels has some of the richest Star Wars lore that we've gotten in any show, and far greater than we've gotten in any film. And I know that film is what adults go to the movies to go see, an adult, a grown-up movie. But these cartoons, Rebels season, 2 from halfway through 2, and especially 3, and frickin' blow your mind in season 4. That's the richest Star Wars lore we've ever gotten on screen.
Oh yeah,
and nobody can tell me otherwise.
The world between worlds, whether you love it or hate it, that happened, and you went, "Whoa, this has changed the way." Even if you decided, forever.
That's a great point, because even if you decided afterward, I don't really like that. In the moment before you went to the internet and saw what everybody else was saying, you were like, holy frick, what is this? Right?
Yeah.
So they're throwing all this money and all this composition and full orchestra for every single episode. I think we're about to get like, I don't know. I think that they're going to start off almost like the Bad Batch. Like you started off with Order 66 and we had no time. We had no time for waiting for anybody. We're the rabbit from the beginning of Alice in Wonderland. And we're like, if you're going to come on. Like there was no, we were late for a very important date with Order 66, the very first episode of the Bad Batch. we're late to a murder,
All right, hey,
but
welcome to the
I
new
feel
show
like that's what
and child murder. Like,
it's like. Yeah, Caleb Dune's just there, and it's like, what if we killed his mom? Like right there, like the
Yeah.
worst part of Bambi, right at the beginning of the Bad Batch.
you immediately have one of the heroes. Hey, did you kill that kid? Hunter lied about killing the kid. We don't like Hunter anymore.
Crosshair's, yeah, Crosshair's like, I don't know if I can trust you. You're not murdering the kids like we're supposed to.
I don't know if I can trust you. You lied. I know you let that kid live.
You should have killed him like I told you to kill Hunter all those years ago. He's really getting on my nerves.
That's right.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
But yeah,
I agree. I think it's Tales of the Jedi, and I think it's going to start hot. We're going to start hot.
I have a question for you though.
Okay, go ahead.
Be a hot topic. Do you think they're going to keep the same characters, or are we're going to make up brand new characters that are? This is the brand new Disney character that's kind of like Exar Kun. This is the brand new Disney character that's kind of like Keldromo.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You know, I have a fear, and one of my fears is the show is called Tales of the Jedi and has nothing to do with that time period. I'm hoping that's not the case, because I'm sure it's going to be good. But if it's like, if it's an animated show. Yeah, if it's an animated show based on Rey and Finn after Rise of Skywalker, I'm going to be sad. Not because I want that show, but I want that to be live action because I miss our Queen and John Boyega. You know what I mean? Like I want to see them again. And they could do great voice acting, like we already know that, but I want to see them done justice for how much they loved Star Wars when they were first cast. Yes. And that's something we'll get into a little bit later. But I do think it's going to be Old Republic. How old, I'm not sure. I think the timeline's wide open. You know, anything prior to hey, and here's the other thing. I think if I had to guess, right, if you gave me $5 and you said you have to spin this on a bet, I think they're going to find a way to tie in either concepts or characters or something from the High Republic into this, because we've also been hearing rumors of a show, whether it's live action or animated, we're not sure, but centered around the High Republic. We just finished phase 1 with the Fallen Star, and they're going backward a few hundred years for phase 2. And so who knows if Tales of the Jedi will be around that time, or if phase 2 begins and it has nothing to do with it. And Tales of the Jedi is, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years before. I hope they go way, way back. That's one of the cool things about the Tales of the Jedi comics was like, hey, these guys that you already know, Han Solo, Luke, all those guys, irrelevant. This is 5,000 years before. I love that. I would love to see like Mandalorians, but they're Tong warriors, like legitimate, like first Mandalorians. I would love to see, we've never gotten, we've always heard and we've read in books about how powerful the Mandalorians were. There were 3 powerful factions in the galaxy: the Jedi, the Sith, the Mandalorians. Like, we've never seen the Mandalorians in that light. So it would be cool to see that. I think that Disney is the master of capitalizing on characters that exist and making new characters for you to buy. Probably. So Disney wants to make money. That's what their goal is in life. They don't care if you like the story. Someone's going to pay for this. And so I think that they may keep some characters, but there will also be characters that we've never heard of that are going to be probably the main characters. I don't know if they're going to keep a character like Exar Kun as the main guy. They may keep the same exact type of person and change the name just because I don't think anybody's like warming up to the idea of the guy's named Exar Kun. Like, I know it's kind of, you know what I mean? Like, just the political climate we're in, like, they don't want anything that can be taken the wrong way. They don't want anything like that. So, who knows? Like, they haven't really spoken or anything like that. I do think it's interesting that they just released or talked about that trailer that came out for the Old Republic with the new Malgus, all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I would take my shirt off if Darth Malgus finally was on screen for real, and not just in a trailer, because he's one of my favorite Sith.
Just in like a video game cutscene.
Yeah, he would be fantastic. And if it's, the timeline's open, Malgus was not 3,000 years before, but the show doesn't have to be that time before. Mm-hmm. And Malgus, like, everything can be moved. So
I'm also it's possible with how, especially in merchandising and in like the mobile games and stuff, and even little hints in the Rise of Skywalker visual dictionaries and stuff, I think that they could easily bring Revan. Because they know that if they put Revan in literally anything, everyone is going to lose their minds.
Yeah, we'll buy it. I think, it's interesting. Think about this. Revan, and I know maybe this is a reach, but Revan was supposed to have a remake and re-release of the Vintage Collection figure, and that has disappeared.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
What if it was hey, don't release that yet?
Whether it disappeared because people complained that it wasn't up to modern TBC standards, or like articulation-wise, or people complained about it because that Revan figure, believe it or not, is actually based off of fan art from back in the day. It's not actually an accurate representation of Revan at all.
Right.
Or there's also a popular story that's gone around that is even kind of sort of supported by Hasbro, that they actually just kind of forgot. Whoops, we forgot about him, so we just took him out. And I'm like, I don't know.
Well, they say that, but they've released him like 7 times for the Black Series at this point. Like, you had the red box, then you had the re-release in the light version. You had the Gaming Greats one for Galaxy of Heroes for the phone.
Yeah.
And then he's been re-released again and then again in the archive wave. So they've had like 3 or 4 releases of Revan in the Black Series. There's no way that everyone at Hasbro, especially the Vintage Collection, forgot about Revan. I can see a world where they haven't re-released him because they're working on a retooling, because a figure is going to be coming out. Who knows? There's also times that Hasbro gets the short end of the stick on information because Disney is so tight-lipped.
Yeah.
Hasbro wants to make money on Star Wars. I think that's something that a lot of people forget because we're frustrated with how much stuff we're getting or not getting. Hasbro wants to make money, and Star Wars is a huge license.
Yeah.
But there's times where I know that they would love, like, I know that especially different people that we know on Instagram would maybe disagree or say that I'm a heretic for saying this. Hasbro wants to have toys out when shows air. It makes so much sense for them, but they're not getting information on time, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that they want to sell us a $30 the Vintage Collection Ultimate Black Series Vintage Collection Black Chrysanthemum. They want to do that, but I don't think they're not getting that information in time. So who knows? Like, maybe they really did forget about Revan for the Vintage Collection. It's weird that within a company they can release it for the Black Series 3 or 4 times, and then not for the other scale, which sells, anything related to Jedi or Sith sells, and you can't find it anywhere.
Yeah.
For the Vintage Collection.
Oh yeah.
So, anyways, we could go on forever about toys, but not everybody listening wants to hear about our collections. So, that's our news for this episode, and now we're going to get into the beef and the real oomph of the episode, which is a celebration of Daisy Ridley. So, this week, April the 10th, I want to say, it was 2 days ago. Classic Island Ray, I want to say.
Oh yes, that's
Octo.
my favorite one.
So this a couple days ago was Daisy Ridley's birthday. She's recently back on social media, which is really cool. It's cool to see. I'm sure the break was fantastic for her, but it's cool to see her back on social media just because she really is a fan favorite. And I think that there's so many voices out there that are so loud that are negative that I think there's so many people that love Rey Skywalker, and that's her name. I don't care what anybody says. That's the beauty of. Like, to me, it's crazy. So the church I work at, we're a big part of what we do is we help work with foster and adoptive families.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. There's a guy I work with that he has 5 kids, and one of them is him and his wife had this baby, and then their other 4 kids are adopted. And I remember growing up it being like the joke you would tell someone as a joke, like you're adopted type of thing. But it's crazy because it's wild because when you really talk to people who've been adopted, of course there's the bad side of that type of situation as well. But a lot of people have a fantastic relationship with their adoptive parent. And this is someone who, whether they just felt like this is something that they wanted to do, or they felt like God wanted them to be a part of, or whatever, people go out and they want to show love to children who maybe aren't receiving that from their birth parents, or maybe they never met their birth parents, or they've been in an orphanage or whatever. And I've really come to appreciate like how much love goes into an effort, and like blood, sweat, and tears goes into adopting a child.
Oh yeah.
And so to me, it's so powerful that Rey is ultimately basically adopted into the Skywalker family. And it's cool at the end of episode 9 where Luke and Leia are like, yeah, go ahead and say it. Like, you belong with us. So there's the haters out there that are going to hate anything that Star Wars does. But when she said Rey Skywalker, I cheered. And I think that there's a lot more people that cheered than booed, and the boos just got put on YouTube because everybody that cheered was enjoying the movie too much to care.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? The people, I wasn't like, here it comes, I'm going to boo.
Star Wars!
We were enjoying ourselves. Exactly.
Oh, yeah, 'cause, I mean, think about it. I mean, Star Wars, we may be jumping way ahead in our points here, but Star Wars is all about found family. I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
Luke, his whole life, all he knows is his aunt and uncle. And then one day, he's out hanging out with this, desert, magical hobo, and
crazy old Maurice.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, the only family he knew that he had that existed, is killed. And then what did you have? Space hobo and a couple of new droids he just bought, and
yeah,
and very quickly throughout the story, these people, these friends that come into his life, and his as of yet unknown sister, very quickly become a found family,
right. Right.
And he clings to them, and there's nothing that he wouldn't do. What Han Solo's story, he and Chewbacca, I mean, I don't know if you would equate them to just best friends or brothers or what have you.
Right.
But, they are family,
Yeah. You literally have a character in Han who, whether you like it or it was corny in Solo, like he gets his last name because the guy at the terminal at the airport is making fun of the fact that he doesn't have any people.
That he's alone.
And then, yeah, he's like, I don't have people. And he's like, well, Han Solo. Whenever that happened in the theater, I was like, what? I was like laughing. But yeah, he finds like he's by himself. For a while, he's got a father figure in Beckett, even though it turns out not to be what he thought. But he's got this guy in Chewie who's there literally like till death. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have characters in, you have a character in Anakin who never had a father, there was no father, and he has a brothership with Obi-Wan, and he has father figures in his life like Yoda. He has, ultimately what's so crazy is it would be kind of pointless to make a novel or something about this because they're just carefree within the cosmic force, and they understand like all that's wrong now will be undone and everything will be made right. Like they have a peace about it because they're outside of the timeline that we live in, where we're like worried about the moment. But it would be interesting. Maybe they could just do a short little comic about it or something. But I would love to see the moment where Qui-Gon and Anakin are reunited in the cosmic force. You know what I mean?
Man.
Like Qui-Gon was that father that was even after death kind of looking over him and stuff. So, but yeah,
Qui-Gon,
I think that
turns into that Captain America meme. So you messed up. It's okay.
You made a big one
now.
That's funny. But you know what? Rey is, man, she is one of the heart and soul characters of the sequel trilogy. Me and you are both sequel apologists. You know, everybody's going to have gripes about things that they love. Of course, there's things that we would change, but I really enjoyed the sequels. I'm a huge Rise of Skywalker fan. I will go to my grave. I will fight you to the death for the Rise of Skywalker. You know, I know that there were mistakes made. I know that things were changing and moving and shifting throughout those years from 15 to 19 when stuff was coming out. I don't care. Things were changing in the original trilogy. No one, Mark, and, you know, when you look at the picture, there's a picture on the internet of Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher when they find out during the filming of Empire Strikes Back that they're brother and sister, and the look on their face is, but we made out. Like there's a disdain for themselves that's like, whoa, what's going on? And so that's what's
wait a minute, not even once, more than once. And then
that's what's crazy. So Star Wars has always been an evolving, crazy circus. And so I don't mind that the story changed and evolved. And I hope that for characters like Snoke, I hope that there are books and novels and shows that really flesh out that character and that storyline. He deserves more just because he was such a cool character. Yes. And I talked about that in a recent episode, but getting back to celebrating The Last Jedi, Rey Skywalker, man, I'm just making people mad tonight.
I'm a Last
what
Jedi
were your first impressions? So. What were your first impressions when you first saw Rey, when the trailers are coming out, when you saw The Force Awakens in theaters? Did you think she'd be a main character? Did you think you think Finn was the Jedi? What was going on?
I thought she was going to be part of the main crew. You know, one of she was either going to be like the Han, the Chewie, the Lando, the Leia. You know, she was going to be part of the main crew, but she was marketed as a support character. You know, John Boyega's Finn was marketed as the Jedi, the guy. And so my thought was, okay, she'll be like, I almost put her in like the kind of like the Rose Tico role. You know, she's part of the main crew.
Oh, wow.
She's a little bit more tech savvy. You know, she's a scavenger. She knows her way around. She'll be useful, reliable in a bind, but we're probably not going to go super deep down her story. And then it was very clear once the movie started, like not even 10 minutes into the movie, I was like, have a feeling.
This is our main character. I was in the same boat, dude. When the trailer came out and Finn lights the lightsaber on the forest of Starkiller Base against Kylo, I was like, this is freaking sick. I am so down for this. So whenever you're watching the movie for the first time, right? So trailers are done. You're in the theater. The Force Awakens trailer, you know, the credits roll. Did you have a thought, this Rey is a relative of so-and-so, or did you think she's just a new character?
Oh, no. I immediately, as soon as that Force vision happened, my immediate thought was, oh my God, she's a Kenobi. Oh my God,
really?
She's a Kenobi. Somehow she is.
Is it because of Ewan McGregor's voice?
Well, there was multiple things that kind of led me to it. I was, of course, Ewan McGregor's voice being in it, you know, and Alec Guinness, you know, the fact that both of them spoke out to her, and that was the first time someone like a Jedi had reached out to her. Not even Luke, Obi-Wan Kenobi's the first Jedi that reached out to her to encourage her.
Wow.
Rey, these are your first steps. The first one.
Yeah.
And, and we know from tertiary materials like, the comics and other series, and especially the certain point of view novels, that it's not, people don't just separate themselves from the cosmic force all willy-nilly. It is an effort. You have to
Right. Yeah.
do it. So if she was just some ho-hum character that didn't mean anything, why is Obi-Wan Kenobi ripping himself away from the cosmic force to speak to her in a vision? Like,
right.
It seems kind of pointless. So she has to be important. The fact that the saber called out to her, a lot of people are immediately, oh, she's got to be some kind of Skywalker. Maybe she's Luke's kid. I immediately was like, man, the person who had this lightsaber the longest out of anyone was Obi-Wan Kenobi. Sat in his hut for 20 years. He had that saber longer than Anakin had it. Anakin only had it for like 3 years.
I never thought about that.
Yeah,
I never
Luke
thought about
only
that.
had it for 3 years.
3 years, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So Obi-Wan Kenobi
Very
owned
interesting.
that saber longer than anyone else. She has a British accent.
It's kind of like when someone owns like a building and you're renting an apartment or you're renting a house, like they own it, but when people come by, they're going to Finn's house, they're going to Josiah's house. Like, of course, there's a mortgage company somewhere that owns the apartment we live in or owns the house that we're even though we own it, we're paying somebody that they technically own the house until we pay it off, things like that. But when people come over to your house, they're going, hey, I'm going to Finn's house. I'm going to Josiah's house.
Right.
I never thought about that before, that he was in possession of that saber for so long.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a marketing thing, or maybe that's because the saber you always see is attached to Anakin or Luke. Yeah. But that's really interesting. I never thought about that.
Yeah. And then also, she's got a British accent, which I was like,
right.
It's a very surface level connection, but I was like, it helps, And then
it does. It does.
My last real big thing was that just from a storytelling standpoint, the deep cinematic poeticism of the original trilogy being all about starting off with a Kenobi training a Skywalker. The prequel trilogy, being the same Kenobi, teaching us, like training a Skywalker to be a Jedi, and then
it would be cool if the roles were reversed for this one.
Having Luke Skywalker being able to train a Kenobi, it would have just been beautiful.
That's a really good point,
and that makes it sound like I don't like what happened, but I love the sequels. I'll make that.
I think. When I was watching The Force Awakens, I was like, I don't know who this chick is. I knew that she had been abandoned there, so I was like, and we don't know where Luke is. We don't know really what the First Order is. I'm like, is Luke dropping her off to keep her safe? Like almost like a Luke on Tatooine with Uncle Owen kind of thing. And I was thinking, but in the care of Unkar Plutt, like in the vision, she's being left with Unkar Plutt. He's a total sack of crap. Luke wouldn't do that. And I heard the Kenobi voice. I'm watching the movie, and I'm watching the movie as well. So I'm like, I can't just sit here and analyze. I have these thoughts, but I'm trying to pay attention. It's my first time watching this movie. I'm loving it. I'm loving Kylo Ren. I'm loving seeing Han Solo talk crap to Finn. I'm loving Chewbacca. I'm just watching all these things. And then the fight scene in the forest happens, and she does a gouging move. And I looked at Samuel and I said, she's a Palpatine. 2015 December, we're in the theater. We both called it. I was like, "Did you see that?" And he goes, "That's a Sheev move." And I said that she's a Palpatine, 100%. And so they went the no one route for the first 2 movies, and then when Sidious says, "I've waited for my granddaughter," I was like, "Yes!" I felt so vindicated because, and what's so crazy is, according to Kathleen Kennedy, that was the plan the whole time, right? But according to Daisy Ridley, she said they were thinking the Kenobi route, and JJ came to her during the filming of Rise of Skywalker, and to quote her, she says, "Palpatine's granddaddy." And So it's interesting. It's funny because it was like a crappy prophecy that came true, that
Right.
but nobody else in the whole saga does a gouging move like Palpatine does in episode 3 until you see Rey in episode 7.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
You
but
knew before
I
J.J.
thought,
Abrams knew.
yeah, I must have just put that energy out there, and they were like, caught it in the air. Oh, what's
Yeah.
this?
I did feel vindicated though, knowing that Daisy Ridley talked
You
about
were
at
also
length
right.
that
Yeah.
when filming of the Force Awakens was over, JJ pulled her aside and said, "Hey, I just wanted to fill you in on this is who you are, this is your character story, this is where it's going." And he told her all of it, and she
Yeah.
said she cried. It was beautiful, and she said that she was supposed to be a Kenobi. And then
Right.
she even said in an interview, "Oh yeah, I know who Rey's parents are, or I know who Rey is. It seems pretty obvious
Mm.
from the movie." And I'm over here going,
Yeah.
"I know
Yeah.
it. She's a freaking Kenobi. I know." And I'm so glad to know that I was right. I was totally right.
You
Before
were.
they changed it. Before they changed it.
Yeah, it's funny because
totally
like
right.
you were right longer than I was right, and then I was right by accident permanently.
You were right by accident.
It's like,
but yours counts.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's kind of funny. But her role throughout the trilogy really starts to change because it's like she's co-stars with Finn in the first movie, and
Right.
Poe is like the Lando character, and then her and Finn. I think if I could change anything about the sequel trilogy, there are things that happen in The Last Jedi that I think took us away from the path that JJ was trying to set us on. I wish that here's my problem with the sequels, if I have one, is it seems the story is like inconsistent because it was written by JJ, then written by Ryan, then written by JJ. And I'm worried because I think Ryan Johnson really gets and loves Star Wars. I think that they're nervous to really give him the trilogy they were thinking about giving him because of the backlash of The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
But my thing is, he's the biggest Star Wars fan that's ever written a Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
Like, George Lucas isn't a Star Wars fan. He's a writer, and he had a story he wanted to tell. As far as Star Wars fans, he's the biggest Star Wars fan.
Yes.
J.J. Abrams is not a bigger Star Wars fan than Ryan Johnson. And he did what all of us do on Instagram, and he took his toys and he made a story. And the thing is, the story that he wrote is just a different style than other people.
Right.
There's accounts all over Instagram that it's like, oh, what if Padme and Obi-Wan were being intimate, or what if it was Ahsoka and Anakin, and it's like they have these toys kissing. That's not my cup of tea, but that's the story they want to tell with their photography.
Right.
So Ryan Johnson told a story that wasn't everybody's cup of tea, but I think that we negate the fact that he's a great storyteller, and I think he would do great Star Wars if he wasn't trying to be the middle of two J.J. Abrams bookends,
Right.
because they're so different in their styles. And I think the number one thing I would change I would want Finn and Rey to stick together throughout the trilogy. And although I am a Reylo fan, it would have been cool to see Finn and Rey's relationship progress. It just feels weird that it feels like they're really flirty the first episode, and then they go two different ways. In episode 8, there's some romantic tension between Rey and Kylo because they're now we know obviously they're a dyad in the Force. Then you have Finn, who's being hit on by Rose. He's not returning the feelings. She kisses him, and he's like, "Stop," And then you have Finn do his complete own thing, focused on his friendship with Poe in episode 9. I wish their relationship would have just been something that grew stronger and stronger throughout the movies.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I definitely think that Ryan Johnson is an amazing storyteller. And like there's a reason why The Last Jedi is my favorite sequel trilogy film. And it's honestly, is it really? It's probably in the top 3 favorite Star Wars films ever. I love The Last Jedi.
Wow.
I think that they should have just picked and said, okay, either JJ, you're going to do all three of these movies, so it's a cohesive story, or Ryan, you're going to
Right.
do all three of these stories. Like, you're going to do all three of these movies so it's a cohesive story.
Or co-write.
Or, yeah, just put them in
Right.
a team, work together so that they're both on the same page through the whole thing.
Yeah, because when you look at the original trilogy, George writes all three, but there are three different directors, and then he writes and directs the prequels, and that's why those stories feel like they fit a little bit more.
And
I
he
think
also has
that
Lawrence Kasdan for a large percentage.
right.
Of that.
I think right, and I think that the Mandoverse, you have all these different directors for all these episodes, but they're all coming together under the umbrella. It's very similar to the High Republic. Very similar. Yeah, you have John and Dave who are their writing, and then their story goes to these directors, and you get the different feel of the director, but the story is congruent.
That's right.
You know what I mean? With the High Republic, these authors go on a retreat, like Claudia Gray and Daniel Jose Older and Kevin Scott and Justina Ireland and all these people. I'm forgetting like somebody super important. I'm forgetting. Oh my God.
Charles Soule.
Yeah, God, I'm so sorry, Charles. Charles Soule, who's like arguably the greatest Star Wars comic writer ever. These guys all go on a retreat together to Galaxy's Edge or the Halcyon Cruiser or whatever, and they ask questions like for the trailer for the High Republic when it first came out. What are the Jedi the most afraid of? Immediately, we're like, the Sith, duh. The dark side, duh. No, they're scared of losing their connection to the Force. They're scared of being in a world where everybody's looking to them for help and they have nothing to offer. And that's the predicament they've been put in. And they've done an amazing job of, you tell this kind of story, you tell this kind of story, you tell this kind of story. Here's 12 characters in one beautiful rock that are going to span the whole story. You know what I mean? And I think that J.J. Abrams does an awesome. I still need to buy a Geode, dude. I still need to get one.
I'm saying this is my Geode action figure.
Dude, I need to go to the freaking pet store and just get like a terrarium rock.
Just get a rock.
And take pictures with it. But I think, dude, JJ's movies are fun.
Yeah.
I think that Ryan's movie, there's things I would change, and it's because he's a fan. He's writing a story that he likes, and there's parts of it that aren't a story that I enjoy as much. But the highs, it's the same thing with Rebels, right? The highs of The Last Jedi are some of the peak moments of the sequel trilogy. The Kylo Ren that you get in Episode 8 is an unmatched character in most of the Star Wars movies. And part of that's Ryan. You just have to admit it, you know?
I think that Episode 8 Kylo Ren is probably the best Kylo Ren we get. I think that because of the rapid pace of Episode 9, even though that's where his story ends, I think that it almost takes away from his character. I felt like in Episode 8 we really got to sit with his character.
Yeah.
A lot more.
Yeah, I think that JJ was like, okay, what are the things the fans didn't like? Let's undo some of that. And I will admit, I cheered in Episode 9 where Luke Skywalker steps out of the fire with the lightsaber and says, the weapon of a Jedi deserves more respect. I cheered because I agreed. I thought I did not agree with Luke throwing the saber over his shoulder. That's not Luke Skywalker to me. Yeah. But I do think that the pace was so fast to get the story to where it needed to go and to please the fans, and there's all these ideas that JJ had that were kind of left on the table.
Yeah.
You know, the Knights of Ren didn't have to be in Episode 9, but he wanted them in Episode 9, and I was glad they're in Episode 9, but that's 5 minutes that you have to shoehorn in there.
Yeah.
I think The Rise of Skywalker should have been like a 3.5 hour movie.
I would watch it, you know,
and I would have seen it.
Lord of the Rings
I was on board.
You know, like I will watch it.
I was on board.
Yeah, I mean, like,
yeah, I still think that they should have, like, I wish that they would. And the thing is, Disney's very like, their cards are close to their chest, and they're going to use what they're going to use, and they're going to burn something in like a crazy, you know, Book of Daniel style furnace, like, you know, if it doesn't work, no one's ever going to see it. I wish that we were going to eventually get that 4-hour cut of The Rise of Skywalker. You know what I mean? Just let me put it on Disney Plus. I'll sit down and I'll watch it. But there was so much more that could have slowed the pace a bit, where you could enjoy what you were seeing, because it felt like it was going when you first see it, it's really great. I will say this, having watched all 3 of those multiple times, a slower movie never gets faster when you watch it with time. You know what I mean? The big issue of The Last Jedi, where they're running out of gas, I'll never be like, this is a great plot point. Like, I'll always be like, can we have a different issue? I will say, watching The Rise of Skywalker, once you've watched it 3 or 4, 5, 6 times, it slows down for you and it's more enjoyable. So there's pros and cons to both. But do you think, getting back to Daisy Ridley and Rey's character, do you think that the sequel trilogy, having so many main characters, do you think that Rey got as much love as she could have, should have? Do you feel like at the end of the sequel trilogy that Rey's character got the love that character deserves?
I think that Rey's character got a lot of attention and a lot of love and everything, almost to the detriment of other characters in the sequel trilogy.
Yeah, I think the number one person that I want more from was definitely John Boyega's Finn.
And so that's why I agree that they should have been, their stories should have been linked,
paired together
in their journey to become Jedi. And it would have just fleshed their characters out. At the same time, both very well. But Rey's character, we spent a lot of time with Rey. I love the lore about her getting to go and find Luke at the first Jedi Temple. I love how, from a certain point of view, people see her training as a very reductionist way of becoming a Jedi. Oh, she did 3 days of training and yada yada yada. I'm like, I mean, how long was Luke on Dagobah? What? 3-4 days? A week? And then but he's the
also
most powerful Jedi ever, you know?
Right. I think it's, I think that people, they call her Mary Sue and all these things. Here's the problem. She's really not Palpatine's granddaughter. She's like Palpatine's daughter, because Palpatine's clone was her father. Right. So it's like, she's really like the Boba Fett of Palpatine's. So Anakin won the freaking Boonty Eve Classic with 0 training, and then went to the Jedi Temple, and Mace Windu was like, what the frick is this? Okay, let's do a test with the iPad. And then Anakin knows all the things that are on, Anakin was doing things that were far beyond what he should have been able to do walking into the Jedi Temple. And I don't know if it's we're mad because George isn't in charge of Star Wars anymore. I don't know if it's it's harder to get behind a female lead character for some people. I don't know what it is, but I think you can't really use a Mary Sue when she's Palpatine's blood and she's being trained by Luke Skywalker, who is probably the person complaining's favorite Jedi. You know what I mean? Once Luke opens up and reconnects to the Force, you don't think that he's going to be, because Luke's my favorite Jedi, and Luke from Legends is one of the greatest teachers in the history of the galaxy. He's going to be able to impart some freaking wisdom, and Daisy's personality and Rey's personality is so open, and so Luke learned and grew so much, and his personality is rigid. His personality is a complainer. His personality is he grows out of it. But Luke from A New Hope and the beginning of Empire is not a very good student, not a very good pupil. Obi-Wan from Beyond the Grave has to be I died. You're going to teach the boy. You understand me, you little green noob? He has to talk Yoda into it. And you have Rey, who is a way more willing student, a way more absorbent student. So I think that her power makes sense. I think that there could have been a better job with the choreography portraying the power that she has.
Yeah.
I think in The Last Jedi, or not in The Last Jedi, The Rise of Skywalker, pardon me, some of the fight scenes where she's just like swinging and the saber's so heavy, like the choreography of that undoes some of the training that I try to back up Rey. I think that the choreography could have been better. You know, if she shows up and she's fighting Kylo and it looks like Duel of the Fates, then it shows that she's done her work. And I can't tell if it's because she's too emotionally invested in Ben. But I don't know. The choreography, I think, was a weak spot for her fighting skill. The fight from, and I know that there's people who are like, I grew up in a Shaolin monk temple, and my dad was, the greatest swordsman of all time, and I can find flaws in the duel scene from The Last Jedi. I don't care. I think that's one of the greatest action scenes from Star Wars. I wish we would have gotten more of that Rey in The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
But I think as a whole, the treatment of her character was fantastic.
Oh, absolutely. I think that they played it off very well in The Force Awakens, kind of bringing her out of left field and like, surprise, she's a Jedi. That was very exciting to see in theaters.
Yeah, I agree.
Of course,
I agree.
I look back at it now, and knowing how John Boyega's story plays out, I see that he was quite literally cast aside in the movie in the forest and on Starkiller Base, so that she could be the lead character. But
I think that
time,
it makes me sad because John was so cool going into the film, like going into The Force Awakens. John was my favorite actor. Yeah. Like, I didn't really watch anything. Adam Driver doesn't have he's really cool, but he doesn't have a in-your-face dynamic personality. Right. He's just to himself, and that's cool. I think he's awesome. I just think he doesn't have it was John's first big feature film. So he's like, where's all the cameras? I'm going to be in this. And so his character, man, I think John deserves more. I think he has an amazing personality. I think he's an amazing actor. And I think if they did, I'm getting ahead of myself here, but I want to see more from Finn's character, I guess is what I'm saying. Yes. Okay, two more things, and then we'll wrap this thing up because we got so excited about Tales of the Jedi. We're beyond our normal time. But,
no worries.
What are your thoughts on the burial of the Skywalker twins' lightsabers on Tatooine? What are your thoughts on her new saber? What did you think about that sequence? There was a lot of people that didn't like the fact that she buries these two, legacy sabers. Why is she on Tatooine? What do you think about those things?
Man, I'm gonna be honest. As soon as I saw her, that she was burying the sabers, the first just like knee-jerk reaction thought that popped in my head was, "Hey, but you could give those to somebody." Like, where's Finn's lightsaber?
That's funny.
He needs one.
You want to know what my first thought? My first thought was Anakin going, "What the frick?" My first thought was Anakin's going to be pissed. Yeah. You're clogging up his saber with sand. That's my first thought was, I guess because I'm like such a joke around guy. My first thought was like, oh man, I can't wait to see the memes of Anakin's Force Ghost like just destroying his Force apartment somewhere because his lightsaber's buried in sand.
Yeah, Anakin's Force Ghost. Oh, so we got jokes, huh? Huh? Oh.
Yeah. Oh, you want to talk about mamas?
Oh, you want to talk about mamas? But yeah, no, really,
I think it looked beautiful, yes. But I do agree, like, shouldn't those be in a case somewhere?
Right. I
think also it's symbolic of like the new era. You know what I mean?
It's like, that's like, I get that that's kind of like the only real funeral she was able to give both of her masters. That's the only real way that she was able
that's a really good point.
Get that closure. So I get that emotional beat.
Right.
But yeah, that was my first knee-jerk reaction. But all in all, I do think that it was beautiful. Like, I think that was for the purpose of what it was supposed to mean for us as the audience. That was us saying goodbye to Luke and Leia. like a
Yeah.
final goodbye.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was beautiful. A lot of people, I remember their questions were like, wait, does she like, did she just like straight steal BB-8 from Poe, and does she just live on Tatooine now? Is this like her house
Yeah.
now? And I'm like, no. I think that she just went. She took BB-8, one of, like the first friend that she made in this new journey that she was on, that led her to this wider world, this wider galaxy that she knows now. And she took him with her to go visit basically a holy site in that was the where we met the Skywalkers. And that was just her paying her respects and giving her honors. And who knows, maybe she'll fix up the house and that'll be a place that she can go to. Maybe she'll use it as a Jedi temple or what have you.
Yeah, I can't remember where I read this, or if I'm making this up, or if I heard it somewhere. I want to say I remember reading somewhere that Tatooine has a certain like connection to the Force, and I don't know if it's because that's where like the Virgins happened, where Anakin was created, or what happened. I seem to remember reading like people defending like it makes sense. Yes, it's Tatooine. Yes, we've been there 1,000 times, but it makes sense for her to go back to where the Skywalkers began, and that's where the new Jedi Temple will be built. And I can't remember where I was hearing that. It might have been like a reference book to like why Tatooine's important to the galaxy or something, but I remember either reading it or hearing it in another podcast or on a video or something where they were talking about the fact that almost like Tatooine at one point was similar to like Jeddah, where like it was very important to the galaxy. It was very important to the Force. And but it would be cool to see her. It would be really cool to see what's next for her. And I guess that's the last question we'll have, and we'll wrap this up. But what do you think happens next for Rey Skywalker? And what do you think is the logical thing? And also, what would you want to see or read from Rey after this? Do you think we're going to get more content with Daisy Ridley on screen? Or do you think that they're going to leave that alone for a bit and then we'll come back to it later? What are your thoughts?
I think the way it works in my mind, I think both the logical next step and also just what I want to see is I want to see her, do almost what, Yoda calls out Luke for not doing, pass on what you have learned. I think she sees the merit in we need to have more Jedi. And so I think that it makes sense with where characters were left off that she will now try to help train Finn, but they're in a weird, unique dynamic because she's not necessarily a Jedi Master. Who knows? She may not even be a Jedi Knight. She's just, Jedi affiliated, and she's the only one left. So, her being the one that has
I think
the monopoly on knowledge at this point, she's got to share it with someone. And I think that it makes sense for her and Finn to kind of go on that journey, because Finn, even though he's now one of the new generals of the Resistance, leaders of the Resistance, I feel that his loyalty to Rey and the positioning of his heart, like at the end of Rise of Skywalker, this whole movie, he's trying to tell Rey about the Force, and he's almost like Jedi evangelizing to the other, defected stormtroopers and stuff. He's constantly talking about the Force this, the Force brought me together. I feel Rey's presence, like he's hungry to learn more.
Yeah.
He wants to
I think that
grasp on that. So I think it just makes sense.
Yeah, I think that even though she's the Palpatine / Skywalker, Palpatine by blood, Skywalker by adoption, I think that Finn seems to have an extremely strong natural connection to the Force. And I think it is the natural thing to let them take that story to the next chapter. And I think that maybe it's just all happenstance, but I think that we're talking about the Tales of the Jedi and we're talking about the High Republic. And I think it's setting us up, if there is a future show, to look at what a prime Jedi looks like. It really stinks because the most Jedi we've gotten on screen is the prequels. And really that's like at their downfall. Right. Like that's they're like right as you're driving and you forgot you didn't put gas in your car and the light's been on for a while and it goes like that's where the Jedi are in the prequels and they have no idea. And that's actually what our next episode of the podcast is going to be about, is how they got to that narrow dogmatic view that ends up being their downfall. But I think ultimately I would love to see what's next for the Jedi, and is what next for the Jedi look completely different in a sense that she now has this influence of all the Jedi around her when she's facing Palpatine, and maybe they can reach out from the cosmic force, and you have the balance of the Qui-Gons and the Mace Windus and the Ahsokas and the Anakins and all these characters. Are they going to help her find this balance? And, if Qui-Gon's the first Force ghost, I wonder if, because time doesn't exist on a linear plane, can they talk to the Skiers and the Stellan Gioses and the Elzar Mans and the Avar Chris's from the prime time and teach them through the knowledge of the wills how to become these Force apparitions and things like that. But I don't know. I would love to see a new Jedi Order built that it's not grays, but it's balanced.
Right.
Because the Jedi in the prequels thought they had balance, but they were completely unbalanced.
Yes.
And what does the perfect Jedi look like? And I think Luke, before the fall of Kylo, probably was close.
Yeah.
Like the way that he loves and the way that, but you still see in the book of Boba Fett when he's making Grogu choose, he's still holding on to some of those things that the Jedi from the prequels couldn't let go of.
Yeah.
That ended up costing them in the end,
Yeah.
But man, we gotta shut it down because I think we've been going for a good long while. But closing thoughts. You had something you were going to say?
Yeah, I was just saying. I think that having the Force Ghost as a wealth of knowledge to them is going to be invaluable. I think that Rey will take on Finn, and the two of them will go on this journey to try and learn about the Force together. Neither of them being the master, neither of them being the student necessarily.
Yes, I was going to say part of the balance is relational balance. Like Obi-Wan, for as much as we all love him, was so hard on Anakin, and then the relationship with Palpatine had already been grown in the dark. And so by the time that they were brothers in Revenge of the Sith, the seeds of darkness were already planted. I think having the relationship like Anakin and Obi-Wan have in Revenge of the Sith, where we're brother and sister right next to each other, and we're going to go figure this thing out together, is the perfect foundation for what's next for the Force. So, man, it's been awesome. Hey, if you guys enjoyed this podcast, of course, you know the rules. Please like and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Follow Finn at Finn Dormoon on Instagram. He does a lot of really cool toy photography and does customs and stuff. And we will see you guys next time. We're going to leave you with a very new excerpt, a little clip that Darth Maul himself, Ray Park, made for the podcast. So we will see you next time. Hope you enjoy it.
Hey, this is Ray Park, and you're listening to Chiss Ascendancy podcast. Check it out, or Sith rule, beware. Fear is my ally.